In the year 1325, a young man stood at the gates of Tangier, his hometown in Morocco. His name was Ibn Battuta. At just 21 years old, he was setting off on what was meant to be a religious journey, the Hajj, a pilgrimage to Mecca. He packed lightly, a few clothes, a little money, and an eagerness to see the world. He had no idea that this trip would turn into a voyage lasting nearly 30 years, covering more than 75,000 miles across deserts, seas, mountains, and empires. His first stop was Egypt. He entered Cairo, one of the most magnificent cities in the Islamic world. The streets were crowded with merchants, scholars, and travelers like him. He visited mosques, listened to religious debates, and admired the grand pyramids from afar. But rather than heading directly east to Mecca, he turned north, eager to see the Levant. In Damascus, he joined a large caravan heading south to Mecca for the pilgrimage. Traveling in a group helped protect against bandits and gave him new friends from all corners of the Muslim world. After completing the Hajj, he could have returned home, but he didn't. The road called to him more loudly than ever. He traveled to Iraq and Persia, then sailed to East Africa, stopping in places like Mogadishu and Mombasa. He was welcomed by sultans and judges, treated as a learned man because of his knowledge of Islamic law. In each new city, he wrote about local customs, clothes, food, and even strange animals he had never seen before. Eventually, he headed east again, this time toward India. Along the way, he was caught in a storm at sea, shipwrecked, and nearly killed by pirates. But his bravery, or maybe his luck, carried him through. When he arrived in Delhi, he was received by Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq, a ruler known for both brilliance and cruelty. The Sultan appointed Ibn Battuta as a judge and gave him a high salary, but life at court was dangerous. The Sultan was unpredictable. Servants disappeared overnight. Guards watched every move. Ibn Battuta stayed for several years, always uncertain whether he was honored or suspected. Then came a strange order. The Sultan wanted to send gifts to the Emperor of China, and Ibn Battuta would lead the mission. It sounded like an honor, but many believed it was a trap, a way to get rid of him. Still, he accepted. On the way, disaster struck. His ships were attacked off the coast of India. He lost everything, clothes, gold, journals, but survived. Alone and poor, he had to rebuild his journey step by step. He reached the Maldives, where he briefly worked as a judge again, then sailed to Sri Lanka and finally arrived in the great cities of China. In China, he explored Hangzhou, Fuzhou, and other trading centers. He described paper money, bustling ports, enormous markets, and cities lit at night by lanterns. He was impressed by Chinese organization, but felt distant from the local culture. Language barriers were strong, and he struggled to find fellow Muslims in the crowd. Still, he observed everything with the eyes of a curious outsider, sometimes amazed, sometimes critical. After years in Asia, he returned once again to Mecca. But this time, it was not the end. He had heard of another land, Mali, in West Africa, where Muslim kings ruled cities filled with scholars and gold. He crossed the Sahara with a caravan, stopping at oasis towns before reaching the legendary city of Timbuktu. He was surprised by the customs there. Women were freer, and people often sang or danced during religious ceremonies. He didn't always approve, but he wrote everything down. When he finally returned to Morocco in 1354, he had been gone nearly 3 decades. Most of the people he had known as a young man were gone. Even his parents had died while he was away. The Sultan of Morocco ordered that his story be recorded. A writer named Ibn Battuta listened carefully and turned Ibn Battuta's memories into a book, the Rihla, The Journey. It became one of the greatest travel books of the medieval world, filled with wonders, dangers, and voices from distant lands.